In the heart of Willow Creek, a town known more for its picket fences and pancake breakfasts than for police tape and gunfire, something unthinkable happened. A housewife, once the picture of elegance and charm, a husband doing everything he could to keep his family together, and a stranger, dangerous, magnetic, who would unravel everything. This isn't just the story of a marriage in trouble. It's the story of what happens when desire turns to obsession, when the lies we tell ourselves become cages, and when the people we trust most become the ones who destroy us. June 2017. In a quiet neighborhood in upstate New York, police responded to a chilling 911 call. What they found inside the home of Daniel and Elise Hartman would haunt them for years. A man barely clinging to life, a woman in blood-stained pajamas, and a suspect shot dead, lying beside a shattered window. At first, it looked like a domestic dispute gone too far. But when detectives pulled back the curtain, they uncovered a story that ran far deeper and darker. This is the true story of Elise Hartman, the wife who had everything yet wanted more, and how her pursuit of freedom, luxury, and lust led to betrayal, bloodshed, and a night that would leave a town in ruins. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will make you question how well you really know the person sleeping beside you. Elise Hartman wasn't the kind of woman you'd expect to see in a headline. She was beautiful, yes, elegant, intelligent, the kind of woman who always looked like she had it together, even when she didn't. She grew up in Albany, the daughter of a school principal and a seamstress. Her childhood was modest but full of love. Elise was always the overachiever, top of her class, captain of the debate team, homecoming queen. But what people didn't see was her deep desire to rise above the life she'd known, not just financially, but socially, emotionally. She wanted control, she wanted freedom, and most of all, she wanted more. When she met Daniel Hartman, she thought she'd found it. Daniel was kind, stable, a rising accountant with a calm demeanor and big dreams. They married quickly, bought a home, adopted a dog. From the outside, they looked like the American dream. But inside that dream, Elise was suffocating. Daniel worked long hours. He wasn't the type to surprise her with flowers or whisk her away for weekend getaways. He loved her, yes, but quietly, predictably, boringly. And Elise, she needed fire, passion, the kind that scorches. In early 2017, she started volunteering at a local art gallery. That's where she met Caleb Monroe, a 29-year-old sculptor with inked arms, a leather jacket, and the kind of reckless charm that made women lean in and lose themselves. He noticed her immediately, called her E, told her she had eyes like a storm. No one had said that to Elise in years. One coffee turned into long conversations into laughter, and laughter into late nights. By March, they were sleeping together. And Elise, she wasn't just cheating, she was falling. It started with a laugh, one of those deep, throaty laughs that cut through a room like a razor. Elise hadn't meant to flirt that afternoon. She was just volunteering at the Willow Creek Gallery for a charity event, rearranging a table of brochures when he walked in. Caleb Monroe, 29th, local artist, sculptor, and the kind of man who looked like he belonged in trouble. He wore a denim jacket faded by time, his hair unruly but effortlessly cool, a cigarette tucked behind one ear. Not lit, just there, like punctuation. He leaned over Elise's shoulder to comment on a painting and whispered, "They hung this upside down." It wasn't, but Elise laughed anyway. And something shifted. She hadn't felt that in years, that crackle in the air, that sense that someone saw her, not as a wife, not as an errand runner, not as a fading memory of youth, but as a woman. He started showing up more, dropping by the gallery under the pretense of checking on his piece, but it was always her he looked at. And Elise, she kept telling herself it was harmless, until the first coffee, then the late-night drinks, then the kiss in the back alley behind the gallery where no one could see, except maybe the stars. She should have stopped it there. She should have gone home. But Elise wasn't thinking with reason anymore. She was thinking with every part of her that had been starved for attention, for fire, for risk. Caleb made her feel alive. He said things Daniel never said. He touched her like she was fragile and dangerous all at once. She told herself it was just for a thrill. Something temporary, something to hold on to until life got better. But affairs aren't like car rides. You don't control the speed, and you never see the crash coming until your body's already flying through the windshield. By April, Elise was living two lives. By day, the poised housewife with perfect nails and a polite smile, planning neighborhood bake sales, posting curated brunches on Instagram. By night, a fevered woman wrapped in Caleb's arms, her wedding ring digging into his back as she lost herself beneath borrowed sheets and whispered lies. Caleb didn't ask questions. He didn't care about Daniel, or guilt, or consequences. He liked Elise because she was beautiful. But more than that, because she was desperate, and desperation was thrilling. Elise had become an addict, not to sex, but to escape. Every lie she told Daniel made her heart beat faster. Every kiss stolen in the shadows made her feel like she was cheating death itself. She felt invincible, desired, dangerous. And Daniel? He noticed, of course he did, the perfume on her neck when she got home late, the missed calls, the sudden laughter in the middle of the night at her phone screen. But every time he asked, she gaslit him. "You're paranoid." "I'm tired, Daniel. Stop treating me like a child." And Daniel, kind, loyal Daniel, wanted so badly to believe her. So he did. He buried his doubts under spreadsheets and late-night projects. He started cooking more, trying harder, thinking that maybe if he just reminded her of how much he loved her, she'd come back. But Elise wasn't drifting. She was running. And the thing about secrets is, the more you feed them, the louder they scream. Daniel Hartman was a man of habits. He believed in order, in structure. He always placed his shoes by the door, stacked the dishes in the exact same order, ironed his shirts on Sunday evenings, while Elise played piano downstairs. But lately, the music had stopped. She said she was tired, overwhelmed, that volunteering at the gallery was taking more out of her than she'd expected. Daniel, ever understanding, nodded and offered to cook dinner instead. But it didn't help. She came home late, too often, sometimes with the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne clinging to her coat, sometimes with lipstick smudged and excuses ready on her tongue. Daniel noticed everything, but said nothing, because deep down he was terrified. Not of Elise cheating, but of Elise leaving. They had worked so hard for this life, the nice home, the safety, the stability. He still remembered the girl he met years ago, ambitious, radiant, eyes full of fire. And now, she looked at him like a stranger, like he was the last thing she wanted to come home to. So Daniel doubled down. He cooked more, cleaned more. He bought her lilies. He planned a weekend getaway she never went on. He even started researching marriage counselors but never sent the email. And Elise, she pulled away further, because when you're already halfway out the door, even kindness feels suffocating. There were nights when Daniel would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong, how a love so sincere could turn so cold. And each time, he'd convince himself it was just a phase, a rough patch. But what he didn't know, couldn't know, was that Elise had already found something else. Someone else. Someone who made her feel dangerous. And you can't compete with danger by being safe. That was the cruelest part. Daniel thought he was fighting for their marriage. He didn't realize he was fighting a ghost. Caleb Monroe had the kind of charm that made people forgive too much. His crooked smile, his worn leather jacket, the casual way he leaned into conversation. He was the type who could make lies feel like poetry. And for a while, Elise drank every word. But charm fades, and what's left is who you really are. At first, it was little things. His temper when she didn't answer fast enough, the way he dismissed Daniel as pathetic, the crude jokes, the sneering comments about her boring little housewife life. Elise laughed them off, but inside something twisted. Still, she kept going back, because Caleb gave her something Daniel never could: danger, a glimpse into chaos. And Elise was starving for chaos. But then came the money. Caleb started needing help. Small loans, a few hundred here, 1,000 there. His rent was late. His art supplies had been stolen. Elise told herself it was temporary, that he just needed time. Then came the bruises on his knuckles, the fights with strangers, the bottle of pills in his coat. She asked questions. He got angry. "You don't get to question me," he snapped once, grabbing her wrist hard enough to leave a mark. "You're not my wife." And that's when it hit her. She was nothing more than a distraction, a side gig, a fantasy he could control. But Elise didn't leave, because by then it wasn't about love. It was about pride, about proving she hadn't thrown away her life for nothing. She convinced herself she could fix him, change him, that if she just held on long enough, things would go back to those first weeks. The laughter, the thrill, the way he made her feel seen. But that version of Caleb was long gone. Maybe he never existed. And Elise, she had gambled everything on a man made of shadows. August 14, 2017. It was a humid night, the kind where the air felt thick, like it knew something bad was about to happen. Elise told Daniel she had a gallery event. He believed her. Of course he did. He even packed her a small lunch bag in case you stay late. She didn't even thank him. By 7:30 p.m., Caleb was already in their house, in their bed. Elise poured him wine in the same glass Daniel used every morning. The audacity thrilled her, until headlights hit the driveway. Daniel had come home early. He walked through the door carrying flowers, lilies, again. "Elise?" he called, cheerful. No answer. He noticed her shoes by the door, the faint music playing from the upstairs speaker, the wine on the counter, 2 glasses. His gut turned. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. And then, the sound, breathless moans, the creak of the bed. Daniel froze outside the bedroom door, then opened it. Time slowed. There she was, the woman he had devoted his life to, wrapped in sweat-stained sheets with a man Daniel had never seen before. Caleb stood, naked and unfazed. Daniel didn't scream. He didn't shout. He just stared, heartbroken, soul numb. "You need to leave," he said quietly. Caleb smirked. "You think you're in charge, old man?" Then, a punch, hard, fast, years of resentment in a single blow. Daniel fell to the floor, blood already staining his collar. Elise screamed, but not for her husband, not for the man who still carried her picture in his wallet. She screamed for Caleb to stop, not because it was wrong, but because it was spiraling. And deep down, she knew. This wasn't about sex anymore, or escape, or love. It was about destruction. And tonight, someone wasn't going to walk away. Daniel didn't remember the first strike, only the weight of Caleb's fist crashing into his jaw, the taste of blood flooding his mouth. He staggered back, slamming into the dresser. A framed photo of Elise, smiling, radiant, fell and shattered at his feet. Irony had a cruel sense of timing. Caleb hit him again, and again. "You should have stayed gone," he spat, knuckles slick with blood. Elise stood frozen in the corner, naked but for a silk robe hastily tied around her waist. Her mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. Daniel, gasping, crawled toward the bedroom door. Every inch of his body screamed in protest, but somewhere, a primal instinct kicked in. Survive. He made it to the hallway, down the stairs, the phone. Fumbling, shaking, he dialed 911. Barely managed to whisper, "Help! I'm being attacked!" But before he could finish, Caleb was on him again. He tore the phone from Daniel's hand and hurled it across the room. Then came the knife. A flash of silver, a sharp scream. Blood, dark and hot, poured from Daniel's thigh as he collapsed, writhing on the carpet. The pain was unbearable. His vision blurred. Upstairs, Elise finally moved. She ran down, panic overtaking her body. "What are you doing? You're going to kill him!" Caleb turned, eyes wild. "Then help me, or get out of my way." She didn't move. He dragged Daniel's limp body back into the bedroom, used leather belts to tie him to a chair. Daniel whimpered, slipping in and out of consciousness. Blood soaked into the carpet like a growing shadow. Elise sat on the floor, holding her knees to her chest. trying to breathe. This wasn't supposed to happen. She just wanted passion. Not this. Not blood. Not death. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. The nightmare was only beginning. The first squad car arrived at 9:26 p.m. Sergeant Raymond Monroe had seen his share of domestic violence calls. But something about this one felt different. The dispatcher replayed the garbled 911 call. A man, hurt, panicked, cut off mid-sentence, and now in a silent house. No lights. Curtains drawn. Too quiet. Set perimeter. Approach slow, Monroe ordered. Inside, Caleb was spiraling. He paced the living room with a pistol gripped tight in one hand and Elise trembling in the other. Her robe was stained with Daniel's blood, her face pale, eyes wide, barely blinking. "They're here," she whispered. Caleb looked out the window and saw red-blue lights slicing through the darkness. "This is your fault," he hissed. "You should have told me he might come home." Elise didn't respond. She couldn't. Her thoughts were a blur. Daniel upstairs, bleeding out. Cops outside. Caleb beside her, holding a loaded gun and muttering to himself. Outside, Monroe took the megaphone. "This is the police. Drop your weapon. Come out with your hands where we can see them." Inside, silence. Caleb didn't drop the gun. Instead, he fired. A single shot rang out, shattering the living room window and grazing a patrol car's side mirror. The entire neighborhood lit up in screams and panic. Return fire came fast. Shouts, more sirens. A call for SWAT. Monroe tried to de-escalate. "Don't do this! Let the woman go! Let the man go!" But Caleb wasn't listening. He paced, ranted. He wasn't going back to prison. He wasn't going to let anyone take Elise. And Elise? She just curled tighter behind the couch. Another shot. This time it struck Officer Miller in the vest. He survived, but the game had changed. Officers opened fire. Glass exploded. Wood splintered. Caleb screamed. His body jerked as 3 bullets tore through his chest. He fell backward over the coffee table, dead before he hit the ground. The house fell silent, except for Elise's sobs and the faint gurgling breath of Daniel upstairs. Still alive, still bleeding. The nightmare had ended, but the consequences were just beginning. The news spread fast. By morning, reporters lined the sidewalk in front of the Hartman house. Cameras flashed. Headlines screamed. "Love triangle turns deadly. Housewife's affair ends in bloodshed. Victim or co-conspirator?" Elise was arrested on sight. She didn't resist. She barely spoke. Covered in blood, eyes vacant. She looked less like a suspect and more like a ghost. Daniel survived. Barely. He spent 10 days in the ICU, 3 surgeries, blood transfusions, physical therapy. But the physical wounds were nothing compared to the betrayal. He refused to testify, said only one sentence to the press: "I loved her." Elise's trial began in December. The prosecution laid out a damning narrative. Text messages, financial transactions, footage from nearby cameras showing Caleb entering the house multiple times. They argued Elise had enabled Caleb, let him in, hid the affair, did nothing to stop the violence. The defense painted her as a victim of manipulation, that Caleb had isolated her, controlled her, that Elise had been blinded by passion, not malice. But then came the 911 transcript, Daniel's faint voice, Elise's refusal to intervene, her lies to officers, the blood on her hands, literally. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty. Accessory to attempted murder. Conspiracy to commit assault. Obstruction. She was sentenced to 25 years without parole. In the courtroom, Elise wept, but not for Daniel, not even for herself. She wept for the life she lost, the fantasy she chased, the mirror she could no longer look into. It's been 6 years. Elise Hartman now lives in a concrete cell, surrounded by women who carry their past like shackles. She no longer wears silk robes, no longer has gallery invites or brunch reservations. She folds laundry, scrubs floors, eats what's given, and every night she dreams, sometimes of Daniel, smiling, young, hopeful, sometimes of Caleb, burning, intense, terrifying. But mostly, she dreams of herself, of the woman she used to be, of the moment she chose to walk into the fire, thinking it wouldn't burn her. Daniel moved states, changed his name. He remarried in 2021. A quiet woman, no drama. He doesn't talk about Elise. But some nights, when the house is quiet, he opens a drawer in his study. Inside a faded photo, Elise in a yellow dress, laughing, happy. He stares at it for a moment, then closes the drawer. The house they once lived in burned down in 2019 after a lightning strike. A clean end to a place filled with ghosts. And Elise, she now spends her days teaching other inmates how to read. It's the only time she smiles. Because in books, the endings are controlled and no one ever bleeds. But when she looks in the mirror late at night, she doesn't see a teacher or a prisoner or even a woman. She sees a warning to anyone who believes they can control the storm they're standing in. Because once you invite darkness into your heart, it never leaves quietly.